Hi, welcome everybody to this episode of the Lumos Lens. My name is Rich Katz. I'm a superintendent in residence with Lumos Learning. Today we are joined by Graham Adderholt, who is the principal of Elkmont High School, which is a grades 6 through 12 school located northwest of Huntsville, Alabama. Graham, certainly appreciate you joining me today.
Yes, awesome. I'm looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today. Thanks for asking me. I love the opportunity just to talk school, and I think it's important to have those conversations as we all grow together. There's things I'll probably learn from even just the questions you ask me today. So just privileged to be on here with you, and looking forward to our conversation.
Excellent. Appreciate that. So today we're going to talk about closing achievement gaps, some traditional interventions that have been in schools and maybe why they fall short, and then what kind of shifts in thinking that leaders should consider in order to close those gaps. But before we
Mhm.
get into that, just talk a little bit about yourself and your background and what inspired you to get into education and how it all started and your path to being a school leader today.
Yeah, so I've been in education for 18 years, and growing up, I have had a lot of family in the education world as teachers and coaches, and just being very transparent. The athletic side of things probably at first was the driving force to get in the education system. I played college basketball at UAH in Huntsville, and I knew I wanted to coach initially when I graduated college, and that's what kind of led me into the education world. So I started off at Bob Jones High School in Madison, Alabama, as a basketball coach and a history teacher. And I was there for 8 years. And throughout that time, I worked on my instructional leadership degree because I knew at some point when I started coaching that I had an interest in becoming an administrator. I didn't know when or where that would take me, but I knew I wanted to have that in my back pocket in case that opportunity came up. So after my 8th year at Bob Jones, I did have an opportunity to kind of come back to where I went to high school at Athens High School. I graduated from Athens. I was able to go to Athens Middle School as an assistant principal. So that's where I began my administration time. I was at Athens Middle School for 7 years. And the last 4 of those 7 years, I was a principal. And then this opportunity presented itself to me for Elkmont High School. And I'm originally from the Elkmont area. My wife graduated from Elkmont, and it was a good small town community, good feel about it, and it felt right for us and our family. And so we made that transition to Elkmont High School, and it's been an absolute awesome experience to being a principal there at Elkmont. Just the kids, the community has been so welcoming, and we're just going to continue to work hard and grow and continue to improve every day. That's our mindset.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, it's funny you say that. I had a very similar path to you where it was sports that brought me into education. I was coaching
Mm-hmm.
high school sports, I was in other kinds of work, and I decided, well, if I'm coaching in schools, let me try teaching and see how I like it. And that
Yeah.
teaching led me into those administrative roles eventually too. So a really, really similar path. And
And I just started. If you don't mind making a plug here, this past June, I started a leadership initiative called Lead Full Circle. So I have my own podcast set up platform that I do, Lead Full Circle. And the reason I set this up was speaking of education, being in the education world for so long, you see a lot of families, a lot of broken families. And I feel like just as I started really thinking through that this past year, when there's problems, when there's struggles, what are you going to do about it instead of just talking about it? I feel like we've got to put things in place. Conversations are very powerful. And I felt like I wanted to focus on conversations about leadership and values at work, obviously, but also how to lead your family, how to be a leader in the home. And that's what this leadership initiative I started this past June, what it's about. So I'm very passionate about that. So if your listeners want to give it a look, they could check us out at leadfullcircle.net. And again, it's just so important to me. It's a very passionate part of my life is leading and leading well. And the little slogan we've got is lead well at work, but even better at home. To never leave your home and family out of that conversation.
right. And I don't mind that plug at all. In fact, I was going to ask you about it and how it came
Yeah.
about. So you kind of answered that already. But so with that podcast that you're doing, that
Mm-hmm.
Lead Full Circle on your YouTube channel, I watched a few of the videos and they are interesting. And it's the content applies to everybody. But
Right.
so your audience is not really just educators and leaders.
No,
It's really
it's everybody.
yeah.
It's everybody. And, It's grown a lot just since June. And no, we're nothing major right now, but we're a nonprofit and we're looking to grow it. And I've been invited to a couple of speaking engagements just to talk about leadership. And I have no clue where it's going to go. And I don't have any crazy expectations for it, but I believe in the conversations just to help people in general at work, in their community, any organization they may be leading. But here's the thing that I always say, are you a leader? Well, if you make an impact on anybody, then yes, you're a leader, but are you leading the right way? And that's just one thing I really stress in these conversations. And I try to have a guest on every month. Mm-hmm. So it's not just me. I get their perspective and their values of what they've lived through.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone has their own different path and different things to offer. So like you said in the beginning, we all learn from each other. That's fantastic. So let's talk about how that kind of connects to school a little bit. And, we said we were going to talk a little bit about achievement gaps and struggles. So talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you see in your school in terms of student achievement and where those gaps lie. I'm sure there's things that are common that people are facing in schools all over our country, but, maybe there's also some things that are more specific to you too.
Yeah, I think for us, where we are, one thing that we're math and ELA scores, math and science, math in general is a struggle for us. But one thing that we're really trying to work on is, and this is not really test related or specific data with that goes, is the relationship part of it. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't connect with these kids, if we don't build the relationships with these kids, if our teachers don't have those relationships with the kids are not going to put forth the effort to achieve and do their best on certain tests and certain state assessments. And that's one thing we're really trying to work hard on, is building those relationships with the kids. We actually had a science teacher this past year on the ACAP scores, improved 23% in science, in middle school science. And we went back and asked a lot of those kids, what led that? What led you to, putting forth effort? And all of them said they did not want to let their teacher down because of how much she invested into them, how much she cared about them. So when I say that, when I first went to Elkmont, one thing we've noticed, I know this is a common trend, is just the lack of effort, the lack of want to sometimes in students. Mm-hmm. A lot of times students may not think it's important for them to know how to solve a certain math problem. So we're really trying to get to the beneath all that and develop those relationships with the kids to hopefully when they care about it, they'll try even harder. And that's if we can get them trying hard, putting forth effort and caring about it, I think that will solve some of the problem within itself. But we're still, the math deficit, the math scores are a struggle for us.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the barriers that maybe don't get enough attention? And you talked about relationships, but are there other things that you see is, here's the pieces that we need to overcome in order to make these changes?
So one thing we've really stressed to our teachers is how to ask the right questions, how to put the right type of questions in front of our students that they will see on certain assessments, certain scores, certain state assessments. A lot of times our kids, we don't want to ask just a yes or no answer. We've got to put questions in front of our students that challenges them, that gets them to think outside the box. So we've really worked hard on how to question our students, and questioning similar what we tell them every day in the classroom it should be something completely new they see on the ACAP or the ACT. It should be very similar, and we think that's important. Also, obviously, technology is a driving force for us. How to properly use technology when it comes to just working out a skill on your device, because most of our state assessments now are tech driven. Mm-hmm. And if they're not comfortable using this certain device a certain way on a assessment, that can affect them in a negative way. So that may seem like something really minor, but at the end of the day, if they're not comfortable with it, they may not know how to use it the right way when those tests come along. Yeah. But really, me and you having this conversation, the data conversations we have with kids, we started this last year. A lot of times we give them these assessments, but we never follow up with them and have conversations about where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are. So we've made a point the past 2 years after, say, middle school takes the pre ACAP assessment, a few weeks before Christmas. Well, we're sitting down with these students talking about their scores. Hey, here's your strength. Here's your weakness. Here's why you scored a certain way on this test. And it's not about the test, it's about their skill. So we really focus on that in those conversations. And we also have a platform called iReady. Mm-hmm. It is a diagnostic program that really lets us know where their skill level is. Are they reading on a 6th grade level when they're in 8th grade? And just lets us know where we can home in on and really improve those skills. So really having those productive conversations with them about data. And then again, just how we question those students day to day in our classrooms.
Yeah. And I love that, because you're not just having students receiving instruction, receiving intervention. It's like you want them to take ownership and have in their learning and what they're doing, which is great. Have you seen any results from that? And not in whether it's data or even just in the students and the way they carry themselves or approach their work?
So we have this year, our pre-ACAP scores are higher than they've been since we've been at Elkmont. So that's a testament to the questioning and just the relationship part I mentioned earlier, and them knowing about it. I mean, when kids, if you take a test, you don't ever revisit it. What does it matter to them? And that's a hard part with middle school. I know I mentioned a lot about middle school, but that's where we struggle a lot of times with the lack of effort, because at the end of the day, when they take those state assessments in middle school, it does not matter what they score on it to them sometimes. So we're really trying to have those conversations, build those skills up. So when you get into the high school level, you can take dual enrollment courses because you've proved it as a younger student, so there's just a lot of connection there. So those conversations have made a huge difference in those scores early on this year.
Right. So when you just kind of getting into that, you're trying to remediate students who might be struggling, but you don't want to lower the bar or the standards either, because you want them to have all those opportunities that you just kind of started to mention as they get into high school and even beyond. So how do you what are some of the shifts and changes you've had to make, or some specific things that you can do that give the remediation that you're talked about for students who are behind, in order to then not only sort of catch them up, if that's the right phrase or not, but have them see all these other opportunities that are available to them?
So what we've done is we've got our PST model, which focuses on students who may be struggling with certain skills. So we meet with each grade level once a week with the PST program that we have in place. And that's good for that part of it. But one thing we've done this year, which is brand new to us, and we're just starting it actually, and this ties into your question somewhat, but for our ACT score, our state report card gave us a lot of good data. And what it told us this year specifically, that we have to be more individualized in how we target our students. So we were able to break down our subgroups and see that we really need to focus on our subgroup of students with disabilities and our subgroup of our EL population. So what we've done is we've met as a staff, we broke down all the data with our report card, and all of our English and math teachers are going through their rosters and selecting 6 specific students that are considered students with disabilities. And they are targeting those students to see how they can specifically get growth in those students. Now, so what that's going to do is they're going to do certain strategies with those students, but it will have carryover with the rest of their students in their class. It's not just going to be those 6. Yes, they're focused on those 6, but it will help all classroom instruction. And then our science and history teachers, they're picking 6 students, EL students, that they are trying to target and target a growth measure for those students. So we're being very specific in our individualized instruction, differentiating the instruction for those kids. But in the grand scheme of things, it's going to affect their entire classroom and how they deliver the content and how they organize all that.
Right. That's great. As you're talking about that, I'm thinking about all the things teachers have to do.
Oh gosh.
Exactly. So
it's a lot.
Right. And so kind of talk about a little bit, how do you prepare teachers to respond to and do all this when they're juggling all the things that are going on? Because we know we know the burnout. We know
Right.
it's constantly more and more is added. Nothing's ever taken away.
Yeah.
And not even necessarily internally within the schools, but
Yeah.
just from a lot of governance types of things too. So
So yeah, that's a great question. And the teachers, they're in the grind from the time they walk in the building to the time they leave. And they deal with a lot more of that level type, just constant in their classroom day in and day out than we do from the administration level. We deal with different type of things. So you want to put your teachers in situations to be successful. You never want to burn them out. So one thing for our lesson plans, we try to make it as simple but as effective as possible. So our instructional supervisor has created lesson plan templates online, and we give them 3 or 4 different options they can choose from. And it's just simple drop down, click buttons. It's not very time consuming. So we do that, hoping it will help with that part of taking something else off their plate. It's not as time consuming as writing it out, filling it out on their own every day. They can go in and click drop down buttons and menus to help with that. But one thing I believe in, I mentioned it in my Lead Full Circle blurb a few minutes ago, is just the importance of family. And I say that to say I never want a teacher to hesitate to ask off or ask to go to their child's performance at an elementary school or spend time with the family. I'll always try to protect our family time of our teachers. And I'm very passionate about that. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job with that. Also, one thing we do is I give teachers every single day a duty-free lunch. Myself and other administrators cover the cafeteria during lunch because I do think it's important during the day. They need to have that time. Yeah, they can go eat lunch with another employee. That's great. But if they need some quiet time, they've got that 20, 25 minutes in the middle of the day. They can just decompress for a little bit and not get overwhelmed at times. So those little things I think are huge. Just to give them time, make sure they know family is valued. They have time in the middle of the day to take off. But I think too, when we begin the school year, I always try to do a book study with my staff, and not to add something else on top of their plate, but you always want to give them an opportunity to grow personally and professionally. So we're actually doing a book study right now, The 7 Commitments of a Great Team by John Gordon. And just talking through the commitments that you must make at work. And we also tie it to our family. But just to let them know, I think that one, as an administrator, you care about them. You're going to protect their family time. You're going to value their time at school by giving them duty-free lunch. But you're also going to give them times to grow professionally and personally. I think those things help because it can be daunting at times what teachers are asked to do within the classroom.
It definitely is. And how do you see that, the lessons that you're taking from the book study, does that filter down then into not only, you're doing that as a support for teachers, all the things you just talked about, but does that filter into the classrooms and then kind of affect the students?
It does. So we just started this. Limestone County is the school system we work for, and they implemented this year, and it's been awesome. So what we do is once a month, every student reports to what we call it we're the Elkmont Red Devils. So we call it Red Devil Role Model. And so usually do it at the end of the month, the last Friday or last day of the month, you report to your teacher, your mentor, your Red Devil role model. And we have those type of lessons with the students, those character lessons. We pull it from the 7 Commitments of a Great Team. Sometimes just, talk about organization, responsibility, trust, accountability, all these type of important conversations that our kids need to hear. So we do try to take things we're doing as adults and filter it down to our kids. And it's easier to do that when we know we're doing it and the importance of it. So let's not hold it back from our kids. Let's try to implement it with them as well.
Yeah, that's great. And you've mentioned the word family a whole bunch of times, and obviously you have connections, personal connections to the community that you're working and serving as well. Talk a little bit about that family and community engagement, specifically in supporting these improvements that you're trying to make with student achievement. So, more than just parents as receiving information from the school, but rather being active participants in the educational process.
Yeah. So at the beginning of each year, we have what we call Parent University. And this is where we invite all the parents to come to the school. This is probably within the first 2 weeks of school. And we sit them down and we show them how to use Power School as our platform to input grades and keep up with the grades of your students. And then Schoology is a platform we use where teachers can upload lessons and upload assignments. And so we show them, we walk them through this step by step on how to check your student grades, how to check your student work. And then we talk to them about kind of what are we doing here as a school to address certain issues. So we make it very available for them to come in and hear from us. We also, last year, we set it up in the gym. It was a curriculum night. So every teacher, every content area set up a table, set up a display, and we had a great showing. We didn't know what to expect to this, but we did it in the spring, one night in the spring, and it helped us with course registration for the next year. But it just allowed our teachers to talk to parents in a different type of setting. Hey, this is what we offer. Here's what we do in our class. This is what our course covers. Just great conversations. I was blown away with how many parents we had show up for it. Just so that showed me that they are eager to hear what we're doing, what we're teaching, why we're doing it. So we offer different settings throughout the year where parents can come in and get information from us on what all we got going on.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm just, we've kind of covered a lot of different topics, with teachers, students, how they're involved in trying to take ownership in their own support, the role of parents in that. Some schools just are not able to overcome these challenges. Some schools show amazing results, and a lot of them have similar demographics, similar school size, similar issues. And what do you think are the differences between the schools that are able to really make meaningful change and those that just kind of sit stagnant?
I'm a firm believer in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I am. And I think if the kids, so this is just being very transparent. This was a struggle when I first got to Elkmont. I felt like there's been a lot of change in our specific school, from the administration down to teachers, coaches. There wasn't a lot of stability. And that's can be somewhat of a constant theme in education, unfortunately, at times. Yeah. But I think the kids need to know that we believe. If the administration, if the teachers, and if the coaches are not talking that language of being positive and believing in those kids, they don't ever hear encouragement, they're never going to accept the fact that they could be successful. So I felt like when I first got to Elkmont, that was the narrative. It's just, we've never been very successful at a lot of different things. We've had our ups and downs, but nothing consistent. And that's been my main focus, is the relationship part, with starting at the top with me to our administrative staff, to our counselors, feeding down to our teachers, and then our students, but also our community. It's funny you bring this up at this time. This past week, I sent a long email to all of our parents just about what I believe the year 2026 can be for our school. And I listed all the positives that we've got going on. And I really encouraged our parents, yes, we're going to have challenges. Who doesn't? But let's not focus on that as much as we should be focusing on all the good things we've got going on. So just really trying to, I think the key is the relationship part of it, and us as the adults speaking the belief and the positivity and the encouragement. If you get in that mindset of, it's been like this forever, nothing's going to change, I think that can tank on you real quick. So I just believe it's our mindset as leaders. It's how we approach every day, believing we're going to be successful. I think over time, kids sense that and believe it. And I'm starting to see that at our school. Just the sense of pride. I had a student write me a letter earlier in the year, just thanking her for us as teachers and administrators, what we're doing, because she made the statement before, 4 or 5 years ago, no one wanted to be at Elkmont. And that's starting to change now. People starting to believe in Elkmont. It has nothing to do with me. It's all about who's in the building, our teachers and our students. Once everybody starts believing and getting that mindset on the same page, a lot of good things can take place, but it takes time. Nothing's going to happen overnight. And I think that's where frustration can set in, is, 1 or 2 years, a lot may not change, but you may be laying the foundation, the groundwork of what's to come in the years ahead.
Right. And sometimes it's hard to reflect. It probably is. You probably did change more in those couple of years than you realize. And I think
That's
that's
right.
true of a lot of people, but maybe it's not the results that everyone's looking for. But if you just make comparisons of where you started to where you are, it's probably
Yeah.
significantly different. And you're right. Students do notice all of those things. And I think sometimes as adults, we don't give them enough credit. They might have
Yeah.
smaller bodies, but they're just like us. They see the same things, they hear the same things, and, think about it the same way.
And I'll tell you this too. I'm on social media a lot, obviously with the podcast and stuff. Social media is not going anywhere. It's unfortunately at times it's what drives this world. So I believe you've got to use social media for the good and for the positive. So I really try to build up Elkmont on the social media platform. But I say that to also say this: I'm not scared is not the right word, but I'm not hesitant to, if I see a parent just blasting us on social media, I will pick up the phone, I will call the parent, and we'll have a face-to-face meeting. And that is not for me to come in and jump on them for posting. Okay, you said it on social media. I want you to come in our office. Let's talk about it. And I guarantee you, when we have face-to-face conversations, the narrative will change 95% of the time, because you may not know the whole truth behind what you've been told. So I always encourage our parents and community to sit down face-to-face, have adult conversations, and most times we'll walk away on the same page. And that's been a big message of mine. Whatever, post what you want on social media, but let's talk about it face-to-face and just talk through it. And I don't know. I believe in that.
Yeah, and it's not surprising to hear that you often do get to a resolution, because it fits right in line with your philosophy about relationships and culture. So,
Yeah.
certainly consistent with what you're talking about. So that makes a lot of sense. How do you maintain, kind of wrap up with this question here, but how do you maintain your own leadership resilience? We talked about, the student attitude. We talked about teacher burnout. It's hard for administrators and school leaders too.
It is.
And if you're feeling frustration, then that same thing kind of permeates throughout the school. So talk a little bit about managing that for yourself.
So it's a great question. It's so important. And I feel like this is for anybody, any leadership position. You've got to take care of yourself. And I've said for quite some time, I believe you've got to win the first hour of the day. Meaning for me, I'm a Christian. I don't hide behind that. Those are my values, what I believe, what I stand for. So for me, my first hour of the day looks like praying, Bible study, and then working out, taking care of myself physically. And if I have that mindset and that approach to each day, it just helps me lead the day the best in a better frame of mind than it would if I just got up and started going immediately to it. I think we have to protect our time. I know that sounds selfish, but we have to do what we've got to do to protect us. Because if we're not taking care of ourselves physically and mentally, it just sets us up for a very tough day, tough week. It's hard. I mean, we go through some very tough times, challenging conversations, challenging issues we face. So I say that, but then also as a school administrator, you have to be surrounded by a very strong team. And I have been blessed. When I was at Athens, I had a great administration team. Now at Elkmont, I have a great administration team. I've been so blessed in that area that you've got to be able to go to people you trust in your administration team, within your counselors also, and have very important conversations. And I can't do it by myself. I've got to take ideas and bounce them off people. And it's so accountability partners is important to you being able to be successful, because if you do it alone, if you isolate yourself as a leader, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. You've got to have that accountability piece to you to hold you accountable, but also just so you can talk through issues. When there's major issues, I never want to make a decision by myself. Mm-hmm. I need some advice. I need some guidance. I like talking through those things with other people.
Yeah, that all makes perfect sense. And it doesn't matter how long we do this. There's always going to be something new that we've never seen before, right? How many times do you say that?
Absolutely.
Never had this situation before,
Right.
And
right.
Yeah, that'll go on forever. So yeah, having that team is so important. I really appreciate you taking the time, to join me today. So it was a great conversation, and I loved learning about you and the school and the great things that you have going on.
Well, I've enjoyed these conversations. I love talking about it. We're nowhere near where we need to be. But again, I love just hearing these questions, and it makes me think even more what else we got to do, what else we need to do to continue to grow and improve. So I appreciate you doing this. This is a great platform for all educators to get on and learn from each other.
Yep.